Wait, do not let your thoughts rush ahead of this moment. There is a quiet shift happening that cannot be seen with ordinary eyes, and if you leave too soon, you may miss the very sentence that explains why everything has started to feel different. Have you noticed how certain answers arrive only after the noise fades? This is one of those moments. Listen carefully, because someone who once measured your worth through the opinions of others has finally reached the edge of that illusion. Something inside them has awakened, and nothing will return to the way it was before. For longer than you realized, your soulmate stood at a crossroads that was never truly theirs. Voices surrounded them from every direction. Some spoke with confidence. Others disguised fear as wisdom. They heard people say you were too distant, too quiet, too mysterious, too difficult to understand. Every opinion became another layer of fog, and slowly they forgot to trust the one voice that mattered most. The quiet truth inside their own heart. But something unexpected has begun to happen. Not through a dramatic event. Not because someone convinced them otherwise. The change began in silence. It arrived during an ordinary moment when everything around them appeared completely normal, yet something deep within refused to stay asleep. Have you ever wondered why the strongest transformations rarely announce themselves? They simply begin. And suddenly the person you thought would never change starts seeing the world through entirely different eyes. That is exactly where your soulmate stands now. They are replaying conversations they once accepted without question. They are remembering moments with you that once seemed small but now feel impossible to ignore. They are asking themselves a question they avoided for far too long. What if everyone else's version of this story was incomplete? That single question has become the beginning of everything. Stay with this message a little longer, because the next realization explains why your energy has felt different lately. Every memory they revisit carries new meaning. A smile they once overlooked now feels unforgettable. A conversation they barely noticed now echoes louder than the opinions they trusted. Even the spaces where nothing seemed to happen are revealing something extraordinary. They are beginning to understand that truth does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it whispers until the heart finally becomes quiet enough to hear it. This is why their inner world feels unfamiliar. They can no longer pretend that outside voices carry more wisdom than genuine connection. And when that realization appears, another one follows close behind. They see how often they allowed fear to wear the mask of logic. Fear asked them to wait. Fear told them to protect themselves. Fear convinced them that distance was strength. Yet every step away from you left an emptiness no explanation could fill. Now they recognize that emptiness for what it truly was, not proof they made the right decision, but proof they ignored the deepest part of themselves. Pause for a moment and consider this. What if the delay was never rejection? What if it was simply the slow unraveling of every false belief they had collected from people who never understood your connection in the first place? Sometimes destiny is not waiting for perfect timing. Sometimes destiny is waiting for someone to stop borrowing other people's eyes. That moment has arrived. Your soulmate is no longer searching for permission to believe what their own heart has been repeating in quiet moments. They are beginning to understand that genuine connection cannot be measured by public opinion, family expectations, passing advice, or temporary confusion. It survives every misunderstanding because its foundation was never built on outside approval. Notice how everything changes from this point. They are becoming less interested in what others predict and more interested in what they genuinely feel whenever your presence enters their thoughts. That difference may seem small, but it changes every decision that follows. The walls built from hesitation are beginning to crack. Not because someone forced them down. Because they no longer make sense. Every opinion that once sounded powerful now feels strangely distant. Every warning that once created doubt now sounds like an echo from another chapter of their life. They are discovering something liberating, that no one else has lived inside their heart except them. And because of that, no one else can decide who belongs there. Before this part comes to an end, hear one more truth. The sentence your soulmate is slowly learning is not complicated, yet it carries enough power to rewrite an entire future. I'm done listening to everyone else. Those words are not spoken in anger. They are spoken in clarity. Because the next words waiting behind them carry even greater weight. I choose what my heart has known all along. And for the very first time, those words are leading them directly toward you. A strange kind of peace always arrives just before a life-changing decision. It does not announce itself with loud celebrations or dramatic signs. Instead, it replaces confusion with unmistakable clarity. That is where this story continues. Stay a little longer, because what unfolds now reveals why your soulmate is no longer looking backward, they are finally looking toward you. There was one final test they never expected. It was not a conversation with you. It was not a message on a screen. It was a quiet moment when familiar voices once again tried to influence their heart. The same opinions appeared. The same predictions returned. The same doubts attempted to pull them into an old pattern. But this time, something extraordinary happened. They listened. And then they smiled. Not because those voices suddenly became correct, but because they realized those voices no longer carried authority over their future. For the first time, they noticed the difference between advice and truth. Advice can come from anyone. Truth must be discovered within. That realization changed everything. What if this is the exact turning point you have been sensing without fully understanding? Sometimes your spirit recognizes a shift long before your mind can explain it. Perhaps that quiet feeling you've been carrying was never random. Perhaps it was the beginning of two separate journeys finally moving in the same direction. Keep listening, because another layer is about to reveal itself. Your soulmate has started remembering who they were before fear borrowed someone else's voice. Before expectations became heavier than hope. Before hesitation convinced them that choosing their own heart was somehow risky. Now those old beliefs are beginning to fade. Every day they become less interested in proving themselves to the world and more interested in living honestly. They have discovered that peace does not come from pleasing everyone. Peace comes from standing beside a decision that feels true, even when nobody else understands it. That is why something inside them feels lighter. The questions that once kept them awake are slowly disappearing. The endless, "what if they're wrong?" has become a much quieter question. What if my heart has been right all along? Notice how different those two questions are. One is driven by fear. The other is guided by courage. And courage has quietly taken the lead. Before this message continues, if these words found you at exactly the right moment, you are welcome to share your thoughts in the comments. Many people discover unexpected encouragement by reading one another's journeys. And if this style of storytelling speaks to you, subscribing simply makes it easier for us to meet again when the next message arrives. There is never any pressure, only an open invitation to continue this journey together. Now, let the story move one step deeper. Your soulmate is no longer trying to collect approval from people who cannot feel what they feel. They have realized something that seemed impossible only a short time ago. No one else has experienced your connection from inside their own heart. No one else has carried the memories they carry. No one else has felt the quiet pull that returns every time your presence crosses their thoughts. How could someone outside that experience possibly write its ending? That question has become impossible for them to ignore. And with every passing day, another layer of certainty grows stronger. They are beginning to understand that choosing you is not about winning an argument or proving anyone wrong. It is about finally becoming honest with themselves. That honesty feels unfamiliar. But it also feels like freedom. The remarkable part is that they no longer feel the need to explain every feeling. Some truths become stronger the moment we stop defending them. Some decisions become clearer the moment we stop asking the crowd for permission. This is why the words inside them have become so steady. I'm done carrying everyone else's expectations. I'm done borrowing everyone else's fears. I'm done pretending my heart doesn't already know. Those thoughts are no longer passing emotions. They are becoming lasting convictions. So if you've wondered whether something meaningful has been changing behind the scenes, listen to this final thought before this chapter closes. The person who once hesitated because of countless outside voices is becoming someone who trusts their own inner compass above everything else. And when someone finally reaches that place, choosing you no longer feels uncertain. It feels inevitable. The next chapter begins where certainty turns into action, and that is where the story becomes impossible to predict. Look closely at what happens just before a new chapter begins. It rarely arrives with loud announcements. More often, it feels like the world has gone unusually quiet, as though every distraction is stepping aside to make room for one undeniable truth. This is that moment. Don't rush past it, because what comes next explains why your soulmate's choice is becoming stronger than ever. Something unexpected has changed inside them. Not their feelings. Their courage. For a long time, they believed that waiting would somehow make everything easier. They hoped time would answer questions that only honesty could answer. They convinced themselves that silence was safer than vulnerability. But silence has a limit. Eventually, the heart begins asking for a life that matches what it already knows. That day has arrived. Your soulmate is beginning to notice that every road they explored eventually led back to the same place. Back to the thoughts they could never completely let go of. Back to the memories that refused to fade. Back to the feeling they tried to explain away but never truly escaped. And finally, back to you. Have you ever noticed how certain connections become clearer the less you chase them? They don't disappear. They become impossible to ignore. That is exactly what is unfolding now. Stay with this message a little longer, because the next realization may change the way you see this entire journey. Your soulmate has stopped asking, "What will everyone think?" Instead, a different question now fills their quiet moments. What kind of future do I truly want to build? The answer surprises even them. It isn't built on approval. It isn't built on appearances. It isn't built on someone else's expectations. It is built on authenticity. For the first time in a long while, they are imagining a future without carrying the weight of constant doubt. They are discovering how peaceful life feels when decisions come from clarity instead of confusion. That peace is becoming their new direction. Each passing day, another invisible chain falls away. The need to justify every feeling. The need to compare every possibility. The need to let outside opinions speak louder than inner wisdom. Those chains no longer fit the person they are becoming. This transformation is quiet, but it is powerful. The remarkable thing about genuine clarity is that it never needs to compete with noise. It simply remains steady while everything uncertain slowly fades away. Now another thought begins growing inside them. What if choosing with confidence is the very lesson I've been avoiding? That question carries more strength than they expected. Because deep inside, they already know the answer. The answer is not found in another conversation. Not in another opinion. Not in another delay. It is found in trusting what has remained consistent through every season of uncertainty. And that consistency has always pointed toward the same connection. Toward the same possibility. Toward the same person. Toward you. Before this part comes to a close, remember one quiet truth. Some of the greatest decisions are never made in front of an audience. They are made in silence. When no one is watching. When no one is applauding. When a person finally looks into their own heart and says, "I know what matters now." That is the sentence your soulmate is learning to live by. Not because the journey has been perfect, but because every misunderstanding, every delay, every outside opinion has slowly revealed something far more valuable than certainty from others. It has revealed confidence within. So let this final thought stay with you. The chapter of borrowed voices is ending. The chapter of authentic choice has already begun. And somewhere between those two chapters, your soulmate has reached a quiet, unwavering decision that grows stronger with every sunrise. They are no longer choosing based on what the world expects. They are choosing based on what their heart has finally accepted. And once a heart reaches that kind of clarity, it rarely turns back. There is one final moment that changes every story, not when feelings first appear, but when someone decides they will no longer hide from those feelings. This is where everything quietly comes together. Stay until the final words, because the ending of this message is not about uncertainty anymore. It is about a choice that has finally become unshakable. Your soulmate has crossed a line that cannot be unseen. There was no celebration. No audience. No dramatic announcement. Only a calm realization that settled deep within them. I have spent too much time letting other people describe a future that belongs to me. The instant that thought became real, something heavy disappeared. For the first time in what feels like forever, they stopped trying to predict every possible outcome. They stopped searching for perfect conditions. They stopped waiting for every question to be answered before taking the next step. Because they finally understood something extraordinary. Some decisions become clear only after you stop demanding certainty from the future. Instead of asking, "Will everything work perfectly?" they now ask, "Will I be proud that I listened to my own heart?" The answer comes effortlessly. Yes. That simple answer carries more power than months of hesitation ever could. Perhaps this is why the energy around this connection has begun to feel lighter. Not because every challenge has disappeared, but because fear is no longer leading the journey. Clarity is. And clarity has a quiet confidence that never needs to raise its voice. Think about this for a moment. Every season of waiting has taught both of you something valuable. Patience. Understanding. Self-respect. Perspective. None of it was wasted. Every step prepared the foundation for a decision that could not have been made from fear alone. Now that foundation feels strong enough to support something lasting. Before we reach the final words, if this story has brought you hope or helped you see your own journey from a new perspective, you're always welcome to leave a comment sharing what resonated with you most. And if you'd like more stories like this in the future, subscribing is simply a way to make sure we meet again when the next message finds its perfect moment. Now, listen to the words your soulmate has finally found the courage to say, not to the world first, but to themselves. I don't need permission. I don't need endless approval. I don't need another opinion to tell me what my own heart already knows. I choose peace over confusion. I choose honesty over hesitation. And above all, I choose you. Notice that those words are not spoken with urgency. They are spoken with peace. Because the strongest choices are rarely rushed. They are quietly lived. From this moment forward, every decision they make begins reflecting this new truth. They no longer measure your connection through doubt. They measure it through authenticity. Through consistency. Through the quiet certainty that has survived every distraction placed in its path. That is why this ending is really a beginning. A beginning where outside voices grow quieter. A beginning where trust becomes stronger. A beginning where two separate paths no longer feel as distant as they once did. Carry this final thought with you after this message ends. The greatest turning point was never the moment your soulmate heard everyone else's opinions. It was the moment they gently laid those opinions aside. Because in the silence that followed, one voice remained. Their own. And when they finally listened to it without fear, it led them to the same destination it had been pointing toward all along. Toward hope. Toward truth. Toward a future chosen freely. Toward you. So move forward with confidence, knowing that the loudest voices are not always the wisest. The quiet voice within, the one that speaks with honesty, courage, and unwavering peace, is often the one that changes everything. And this time, your soulmate chose to follow it. Not every ending closes a door. Some endings quietly unlock the one that has been waiting for you all along. If you've stayed with this journey until now, remain for these final moments, because the last piece of the story is not about what was lost, it is about what was finally found. Your soulmate has reached a place they once believed was impossible. A place where doubt no longer has the final word. Think back to where this story began. There was confusion. There were outside opinions. There were moments when every voice seemed louder than the quiet truth inside their own heart. Yet none of those voices remained. Time revealed something remarkable. Opinions changed. Conversations faded. Predictions disappeared. But one feeling refused to leave. The feeling of choosing you. That is how they recognized what was real. Not because it arrived suddenly, but because it stayed when everything else came and went. There is a lesson hidden inside that realization. The strongest connections are not the ones that never face uncertainty. They are the ones that remain standing after uncertainty has passed. Your soulmate understands this now. They no longer see your story as something fragile that depends on perfect circumstances. They see it as something resilient. Something patient. Something that quietly continued growing even when neither of you could fully see it. Pause for just one more moment. What if every delay had a purpose? What if every unanswered question created space for deeper understanding? What if every season of waiting prepared both hearts to recognize each other with greater clarity than ever before? Sometimes the destination becomes meaningful because of the journey that shaped it. That is why your soulmate no longer regrets the lessons. They appreciate them. Every challenge became a teacher. Every moment of uncertainty became an invitation to grow. Every silent season strengthened the voice they almost forgot to trust. Now that voice speaks with remarkable confidence. It says, "I know who I am. I know what truly matters. And I know the future I want to walk toward." Notice how different those words feel. There is no struggle inside them. Only peace. Because peace arrives when the heart stops arguing with itself. This is the quiet transformation that changes everything. Your soulmate is no longer trying to become someone who fits everyone else's expectations. They are becoming the person they were always meant to be. Someone who chooses with integrity. Someone who listens with wisdom. Someone who loves with authenticity. And every step in that direction naturally brings them closer to the life they truly desire. Before this journey comes to its close, remember one final truth. The future is never built in a single extraordinary moment. It is built through ordinary choices made with extraordinary honesty. Your soulmate has begun making those choices. One after another. Day by day. With growing confidence. That is why this message carries hope instead of uncertainty. Because the story is no longer about searching for the right path. It is about walking it. So if these words found you today, let them remind you of something simple yet powerful. Never underestimate what can change when someone stops living through the expectations of others and starts living from the quiet certainty within. That is where genuine transformation begins. That is where lasting peace is discovered. And perhaps, that is where two hearts, having learned every lesson they needed to learn, finally recognize that the greatest choice was never about convincing the world. It was about having the courage to say, with complete sincerity, I'm done listening to other people. I choose the future that feels true. And I choose you. Thank you for sharing this journey from beginning to end. Carry this feeling with you. Sometimes the quietest decision becomes the one that echoes through an entire lifetime.